In December of 2008, my introduction to Animal Crossing came to me by mail in the form of a magazine I'm sure some of you are intimately familiar with. The cover story about Animal Crossing City Folk stretched across 6 pages if you don't count the ads, and the main focus was on writer Alan Averill chronicling his first 4 days in the game. The artwork and aesthetic of the pages caught my eye and convinced little me to buy City Folk for myself, and over 11 years later, not much has changed. I still love Animal Crossing, so now that a new game has risen above the new horizon, I think it'd be fun to follow in the article's footsteps. As of writing, it's been 4 days since New Horizons came out, and I really need to empty the 139GB hole all this footage has burned into my hard drive. First thing to note that makes this game sexier than all the rest, actual character customization. It's got an embarrassingly low amount of options, but I'll take this over surrendering my fate to a questionnaire. One thing Animal Crossing's always excelled at is adding a plethora of quality of life enhancements with each game, and I'm happy to say this is the first step towards the next leap forward. There was a nice little opening video that played before I flew to my island, but the moment I got there I wanted to sue these two little fucks for false advertising. There's more weeds here than a New Leaf town whose mayor has taken an indefinite dirt nap would have. Hope you didn't have any plans for today. After giving up on giving my island the attention it so desperately needs, I met up with Tom Nook and my 2 villagers, a mouse who loves exercise and a bird who loves guitar. I've never been too into hanging out with my villagers, so I wouldn't expect to hear much more about them. After doing a short tutorial for Nook, I can finally name my island. Alright, I've got the perfect name. What? God, stupid fucking thing making me change names. It's like 40 dashes here. It doesn't even make sense in this context. Naming the town ended the tutorial and time began to move again. After the act of moving settled into my mind, I ecstatically celebrated the beginning of my new life. Excuse me, can I help you? First day here and you're already starting shit, huh? At least I got an apology hat out of it though. Wow. This looks horrendous! The next thing I did was take a look at the crafting and Nook Miles systems, both of which I was really excited about. Nook Miles act as sort of a second currency you can earn just by playing the game. They're essentially achievements, which means there's always going to be something to do and earn. The crafting system was equally rewarding. It felt like the biggest evolution the series took with this entry, and I'd say they knocked it out of the park. It's fun to collect materials and recipes, and every part of the process is oozing with that signature Animal Crossing polish and charm. And hey, I've got an eye for the fine arts too, you know. Check this out. Alright, ultimate crossover is a go. Let's see here. I couldn't give him a gun because Nintendo would tell my parents, so I gave him a chocolate bar. What can I even do with these things? Wait, face paint? Oh, that is disgusting. The last 2 things I wanted to do on my first day were pay off my tent and get the museum up and running by donating 5 things to Tom Nook. It was easy to accomplish both, but my puny inventory space was really starting to become a problem. I couldn't donate anything past 5 things because Bladder said he wouldn't show up until tomorrow, so I ended the day with a yard full of animals waiting to be donated. On the second day, the most important bird in the game came to town, Gulliver. I didn't expect to find him so soon, but my buddy also found him on day 2, so maybe it's a common occurrence. Same goes for messages in a bottle. I've gotten a ton of those already. Eventually, I got around to talking to Bladders, and he told me he needed 15 more donations before he could build his museum, and that he's only accepting them one at a time because it's not like I have anywhere else to be, right? He also gave me a vaulting pole recipe, meaning I can finally access the next third of my island and cleanse it of every weed. I'm kind of at odds with how awful the weed situation is when you come to the island, because on one hand it reinforces the theme of building up your island into something special, but on the other hand I think I broke my Y button. With the help of some fossils and all of my front yard animals, I reached Bladder's 15 donations limit. It provided a much needed facelift to the outside of my house, but I still didn't really like how it looked. I just dropped the flowers indiscriminately all over the ground and then decided to move all of them when they grew. The inside of the house was a different story though. I had been collecting furniture from villagers, balloons, and letters, so I just dumped them all onto the floor, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like it. I've got a hammock for a bed next to whatever this is, sewing machine, radio, switch, a lantern next to a gas pump because I'm all about safety, 2 fossils because Bladders hates convenience, a board game with a convenient torch next to it so you can burn the game if you lose, a bathtub to stop the fire with, and a cardboard box to go with the bathtub because you can't have one without the other. floor. So why do I like this room at all? It's probably the floor. It looks nice. The next big task of the day was helping Timmy and Tommy get a shop running on the island, and they needed a few materials to get started. So I exhausted all of my island's resources for the day and took off for another island to do the same. Ever since City Folk, Animal Crossing games have always had a second area to escape to if your town just wasn't doing it for you. City Folk had the city, New Leaf had your ticket to the good life, and New Horizons has a slew of what I assume are randomly generated islands. Structuring a second pillar like this was genius, because now as long as you have miles, you have infinite access to resources. You can even find new villagers on these islands, and the first one I found was this hippo girl named Bubbles. I remember really liking her design, but going back and reading what she was saying to me really rubbed me the wrong way. Oh well. Coming back from the island, I'd met every single requirement for the new shop except the 30 iron nuggets, which I was quickly closing in on. But when I had around 20, I got a message from my friend who was trying to do the same thing I was doing, but he accidentally destroyed every rock in his town because apples are some strong shit. So I flew over there to give him some aid. The deal was 15 iron nuggets for 25,000 bells and an oarfish. He was pretty desperate, but I'm a master negotiator, so I managed to get an even better deal. You can't hear it because I wasn't recording Discord at the time, but I'm being verbally assaulted right now. After running around and giggling like a child for 30 minutes, I got bored and left the island with the iron nuggets. And then I immediately came back and gave him all 21 because I felt bad. Still didn't get that oarfish though. The game doesn't seem to let players exchange fish and bugs because I guess that's cheating? I don't know, I don't see the point in that. I paid off my house with my new funds and that was that. I decided my main focus for tomorrow would be collecting those 30 iron nuggets. I woke up in a bigger house on a rainy day, and Tom Nook telling me I was upgrading things too fast and he needed another day to build a museum. That was fine by me. My only intention today was going island hopping for iron. First I got all the rocks in my town, did a few miscellaneous things like shopping and planting coconuts, then I went to 2 different islands and collected all the iron I needed. I was pleased to see this collectathon only took 45 minutes, including all the stuff I did along the way. Like, dude, come on, what did you even need me for? On one of the islands I met this rhino that looks like Bubbles but tastier. I fucked up a money tree because my inventory was full and I replanted the 1,000 bells. And then I found a spot for the shop and fished for a while before calling it a day. Look, I know it was really short, but I didn't have any projects unlocked. I already raided some islands and planted a few exotic fruits. There wasn't much left for me today. Luckily, day 4 didn't disappoint. Day 4 started with 3 big announcements right off the bat. The museum and shop were opened and 3 new villagers were moving into town. The announcement got me excited to go check everything out, but too bad, the loading screen to get into my town was 1 minute and 30 seconds long. I don't know if this was because I was recording or not, but regardless, that's embarrassing. I attended the 2 welcoming ceremonies for the museum and Nook's Cranny. I really love this feature from New Leaf and I'm so glad to see it back here. I also learned if you hold the snapshot button, it saves a video instead of a screenshot, ruining the commemoration of the museum. And speaking of which, there's not much I can say about the museum. It's simply the best one we've ever gotten in an Animal Crossing game. Nook's Cranny looks the same as it's always been, but upon walking in the first time, I was greeted by Mabel from the Able sisters, who seems to be interested in moving into the island. I'm a huge fan of how all these recognizable characters were slowly trickling into the island. It gave each day a strong sense of progression. I learned about some new features at the shop, which I'll get back to soon, and left to go check on Tom Nook and the 3 new villagers. I caught him in the middle of shitting his pants because he's a poor businessman and agreed to help him build all the new houses because he couldn't do it himself. I got 2 amazing things out of this, the first being the bridge. This was super exciting because cycling through all my tools to find the vaulting pole had become a massive pain. I did buy the tool ring to give me a selection menu, but this is still cumbersome because I have to move my thumb from the left stick to access the D-pad. They should have remapped the tool ring to L3 instead. The second thing I got didn't help my problems either. The ladder is awesome because it gave me access to the last third of my island, which of course meant 30 minutes of weeding, but the point is I was really starting to feel the burn with how outdated tool swapping feels. Who knows, maybe there's another upgrade that somehow fixes this down the road, but after fully weeding my island and getting the bridges built, I shifted my focus to something else. See, one of the new features in Nook's Cranny is a system called Hot Items. Basically, they pick some random thing for any given day day and that thing is now worth double the price. Day 4's hot item was the gong, a piece of furniture that when doubled, its value just so happens to be 10,200 bells. And I just so happened to find a crafting recipe for gongs the day before. So I went out, gathered a few resources, and I made a couple of gongs. And I made a couple of bells, just a couple 112,000 bells. And that's the story of how I paid off my debt to Tom Nook by selling his kids 11 gongs. This was a ton of fun to do, but it really wore me out, so I decided to turn in for the day after planting a few trees. Oh yeah, and I found another balloon too. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so this is the single most vile piece of trash ever created. I've always loved Animal Crossing games ever since I played City Folk when I was a kid. There was always something magical about living a life away from life, and playing New Horizons only reaffirmed my feelings towards the series. I think it's the way the games refuse to give you goals and guidelines that makes playing them so appealing. You're allowed to fish all day or try to upgrade your home as fast as possible, or work on breeding every single kind of flower. There's something so comforting about being the master of your own domain, making rules for yourself, and carrying out activities at your leisure. And being able to do all of this in a vibrant and charming world makes Animal Crossing the ultimate feel-good experience. They're the kind of games you turn on when you need to relax, which for an art form seemingly all about kicking back and having fun, is surprisingly refreshing. I know I poked fun at it a lot for the sake of criticism and comedy, but I adore this game, and I can't wait to keep playing to see where my island adventures take me next. And now that I'm done recording this game, maybe I can finally finish my next big video project. Damn it.